Okay, on behalf of the KITE Research Institute and the VRAR Association Toronto chapter, I want to welcome everyone to this very special webinar presentation. My name is Garrick Ying. I am part of the KITE Research Institute. We're situated inside the University Health Network. And the role of our organization is really to advance research that supports healthcare innovation in the areas of aging, disability, recovery, injury recovery, injury prevention, um, and today we are very pleased to be hosting and co-hosting this event in partnership with our friend Octave from the Toronto chapter of the VRAR Association. So I lead a program at KITE called KITE Creates, and our mission is to really build bridges, intentional bridges between creative industries and the amazing work that our researchers are doing on the clinical side, as well as early stage startups that are innovating and developing solutions that can address some of the issue areas that I opened with off the top. So this, I think, presentation is a perfect manifestation of where we would love, to see the startup ecosystem pointing, and that is where we can bring the amazing clinical insights that come from institutes like KITE together with the entrepreneurial spirit and talent with folks like Ben and Colin, who you will meet shortly. So I really wanted to keep my intro brief and dedicate as much time for us to both learn a bit about the projects that Ben and Colin will be speaking to, and preserve as much time as we have for Q&A. So by way of admin, you'll see that in your Zoom settings, there will be a function for Q&A at any point. We encourage you to fire in your questions and queries. We will do our best to monitor and weave those into our conversation points. But let's treat this as a conversation and a great learning opportunity. I know amongst our audience, at least, Octane, we have a mix of clinicians, scientists, students, entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs, and I imagine as you introduce your wonderful community, it'll just add to the richness of this conversation, the kinds of perspectives that we can bring into this day. So with that, Octane, over to you, and shortly our panelists.
Yeah, thanks, Garrick. Really appreciate it. The VRAR Association, in conjunction with Garrick and his team at KITE Creates, we're really excited to be here to showcase how community members in the XR industry are really making an impact in reinventing healthcare, as well as improving patient care. So today we have two healthcare innovators, and they're doing some incredible things in healthcare and creating the impact that we're so excited about. Today we have Colin Gallagher, president at Haptics, and we also have Ben Sainsbury, CEO of Mirion Surgical. So I'd like to welcome both of you today.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Octave. My name is Colin Gallagher. I'm one of the co-founders and president of Haptics Robotics. I'll go ahead and open up and share full screen. I think I'll lose seeing everyone. So if there are any questions or anything, I guess we'll handle it in the panel discussion, but hopefully we'll cover most of the stuff, and I'll try and be fairly brief so we can have a lot of time to discuss some of the more interesting concepts in panel discussion. So my background is as a technologist. I come from a background in robotics and computer science, and so we at Haptics we work on human-machine interfaces. So we have built this device that allows you to interact and control machines with the fluency and naturalness of motion. And so using your hands to interact very, very precisely with robots and machines and other digital systems and simulations, down to incredible levels of accuracy. So down to, we're talking down to around 200 nanometers. So incredible precision. And then not only do we track the motion, we also provide you the sense of touch incredibly precisely, so you can feel what it's like to cut through tissue, drill through bone, feel what it's like for robots in robotic surgery that are interacting and actually inside the patient, and what they're interacting through with the force sensors and things like this. And so recently we've received some really interesting accolades as a company. We won 2 awards this year at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, probably some of the most prestigious product development awards on the planet, for the best innovation awards in the areas of XR technologies and metaverse technologies. We have over 150 individual clients, including 10 hypergrowth companies, our clients collectively have market caps over $10 trillion, ranging from the areas of pharma to medical devices to robotic industrial automation to logistics and manufacturing, or logistics and package delivery, for example. And so we've really seen how rapidly we've been able to expand the user base of people who can start automating things and automating processes and using the same technologies that exist in medical surgical robots, but now being able to use them for handling volatile compounds or manipulating packages or doing these type of things. And we're really going to see this actually act as the catalyst for how we collect the data and the information that is going to be used to train the robotic systems that are anticipated to have over 10 billion robots on the planet by 2050 that are going to be doing everything from elderly patient care in facilities, home care facilities, to delivering our packages, to handling manufacturing, to doing all these agriculture, construction, all these different things. So I talked a little bit about some of the awards that we won, and we were also announced in the last a couple of years by Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, as one of 12 companies revolutionizing robotics for some of the interaction and input devices we've been building. And I have some cool case studies of some of the collaborations that we've been doing with NVIDIA. So our vision is really to just empower humanity by connecting the level of precision we have as the only, or these kind of funky monkeys that walk around on two legs. We're the only fully bipedal mammals. And there's some really interesting stuff dating back to around 3.5 million years ago, where our ancestors, Australopithecus, they weren't even considered human. They weren't classified as the Homo genus because they didn't have big enough brains. But there's evidence of them having the first usage of stone tools and anvils and fighting off predators with sharpened flint rocks and things like this. And so our ability to actually stand up, free up our hands, and start using tools preceded our ability to think and our ability to be human. And us being the only kind of animals that can do this, it's really profound to think about how tightly coupled our intelligence and our consciousness is tied into our ability to manipulate things in the physical world. And so what we at Haptics are basically doing is we're saying, let's bring our ability to use and manipulate machines and tools and to leverage our hands and our intuitive understanding or implicit understanding of the physical world. Let's leverage that to control the machines, to capture information and data about how we're interacting with these physical systems, and then use that to kind of launch a new wave of innovation in the XR technologies. We see this as being a huge opportunity. So, we work in the medical space, but we work in a lot of other domains, particularly around industrial automation, humanoid robotics and training. And we really see this as nothing more than where basically you use your 2D computer mouse when you want to interact precisely with 3D modeling and design, gaming, your Excel spreadsheet, these type of things. And we're just seeing this rise of 3D interactions, spatial interactions take place. And we're saying, hey, all we did was want to build a 3D mouse. But the sense of touch is incredibly important for that. So as much as it's a really easy concept, I think to think about, the implementation is where we specialized in, is really around the sense of touch and giving you an understanding spatially of where you exist. So we have some really amazing clients I talked about that we're working with that are across sector. And we've actually been lucky enough to collaborate with the UHN starting in around 2019, 2020 with the Mishner Institute with Dr. Mima Dani and Dr. Alan Okernick around surgical telestration and training and these type of tools. And so there's huge implications and huge opportunities also available I think available for the first time in this healthcare space, because some of the value of what we've done as a company is to really launch our product, our device, and we are the first version of this type of technology that's ever been highly portable. So you can take this in a backpack, you can take it with you from the clinic to the coffee table, take it home with you, do this type of stuff, and it really opens up a new paradigm of how training and preoperative planning and the actual performance of these devices is surpassing devices that are 10, 20x the price point, but now with the value proposition of portability. So it really opens up entirely new paradigms of how these systems can be used, from everything we talked about from the medical field to also creative technologies. And I'll have a little bit more on that later. So we have about just a little bit of a background. I talked about it, but we're about 1,000 times more precise than what our competitors can do at speeds way faster. We're doing it cheaper, and we have some really interesting gains that you can get in productivity and automation. And so it sounds like a bit of a panacea, but it really is. Like, one of our intentions was that we wanted to make this accessible for the first time and not have lab equipment that exists and is really isolated from everyday usage, but to really open it up to a larger number of applications. And so we don't build the applications. We're a bit application agnostic. We build the core technology and try and support other end users or other companies to build really interesting applications that can leverage 3D interactions. And Ben from Marion Surgical will talk a little bit afterwards about some of the ways that we've been partnering around trying to leverage some of these value propositions for medical and surgical training. So here's just talk is cheap. So let's take a look at a little video. You can see how fluid these machines are starting to move. And this is a system that we're deploying. The system itself is used in micro automation. So it's got about 5 micron repeatability of the robot. But what's amazing about this is we're able to deploy a system like this for about $20,000. And it has incredible precision and has applications being used in PCB design and manufacturing and handling volatile materials by huge pharma companies. But what's cool about this is you can record 1,000 waypoints. And so when a way a robot moves, it's really, you're saying, move to this position at this time. And so the way it's kind of done today is you have a little software, you move it into location. Maybe you have what's called a cobot, where you can kind of actually grab hold of the end of the robot and move it around. But you might be able to record 3 positions in a minute. We can record tens of thousands of positions in a second. And so what's really amazing about that is you can start to leverage things like human intuition to be able to do complex paths and wind cables and thread the robot through really tight spaces. And you can do this and capture that motion and then play it back 1,000 times. So it's the first time that that's really been a viability as well. When I was saying that we were a little bit application agnostic, it's like the same exact core technology, which is just a 3D mouse. We just released a product, which was part of what we won at the CES Consumer Electronics Show this year, was a product that opens up this tool into the domains of creative industries like 3D modeling, design, CAD software, which is computer-aided design. And so these are really some of the tools that we've been really focusing on. It's like, let's take these core technologies and make them accessible. And so just to give some context, this is the size of what one of these units are. And you have the ability to effectively take this and open it up. And now you have, for the first time, a desktop version of this that can be taken and made super portable and work with a lot of these off-the-shelf softwares that are readily available for people to use in creative spaces. Here I'm just showing some examples, use cases. This is an example of how we were using this and showing that when using a typical off-the-shelf like gamepad, it's incredibly hard to do something like controlling a drone. We can train people literally how to fly a drone just from the intuition of what 3D spatial interaction and understanding things like the thrust being connected to the force the device is pushing back against you of the drone flying. I can train somebody how to fly a drone in some of the most advanced control software or operate a mobile robot that's going to be doing nuclear manipulation of materials or radioactive materials or decommissioning plants. I can train them how to do that in a matter of seconds. And I'm not exaggerating, like 5 to 10 seconds, somebody can pick up a device and start flying a drone in the same capacity you're seeing in front of you. So here's probably a little bit much more interesting from the perspective of some of the work we've been doing, just so you can visualize how this applies to the medical domain. Is this, I'm going to show some simulation, but this also works for preoperative planning. Is we can take scans. We have clients that have done this. They take DICOM data. They're able to output, they have segmentation models, are able to output the DICOM data in a matter of seconds, and then be able to interact with real physical models with insane levels of precision and the stability of feel and robustness. They could do this in dental applications and ENT procedures and a variety of things like that. And here you can see some of the work that we've been working alongside of companies like NVIDIA to build these type of models, and they've been deployed today where they're able to take this and use like the DaVinci DDI, I forgot what it's called, like the DaVinci Developer Kit, and be able to run these models and then do real sim to real training where they can have people train on these digital twins and then take that data and then pass it off to robots that then can use that data to do like macros and suturing macros and things like this. So these papers are readily available to look at today. So I just wanted to seed it with some of the ideas about what we can do and what we have been doing. And don't send anything to xyz@gmail.com. That's really funny. I think that's a typo. But the idea is I would be happy to chat further in our discussion, and hopefully Ben can take it away and show some really interesting applications that they've been using in the medical domain.
Before you begin there, Ben, this is fantastic. Our organization, certainly Garrick's organization, really taking a look at these technologies in market and these organizations that are emerging in terms of the application in healthcare. It's fantastic in terms of the demonstration of your particular product and how it could impact healthcare and how we actually approach human computer interaction. Particularly, you referenced the fact that it's just very natural to use our hands and our human intuition rather than a typical 2D mouse environment. So it's quite fascinating. And I believe, Ben, in your presentation, there's going to be some crossover here as well, too. So I'll let you take it away.
So I'm Ben Sainsbury. This product came out of my PhD in computer science at UOIT. And I met Dr. Rajiv Singhal, who's shown here with our device. He's a urologist over at the Michael Garron Hospital, and we kind of scratched his itch. So this is one of our devices here. He's holding on to a needle, and he's making a puncture into a kidney using a VR headset. So he steps into a virtual operating room. So hopefully this video that I just embedded will work.
It takes a long time.
Can you hear it?
To become a surgeon. There's a lot of training.
Is there audio right now?
Yeah.
You need to use that time efficiently. So the more someone can learn off-site, outside of the operating room, the more efficient the surgical procedures will be. I'm now going to bring one of my senior residents in to work through this simulator and see how she accesses this particular kidney.
This procedure is very technically challenging. We don't get a lot of tries. You may only get 1 or 2 attempts to get access before someone takes over, either your staff or someone more senior. I love the feeling when it comes out of the skin. That's cool.
You can see with these virtual punctures, we're not harming the patient.
That was way harder than I thought.
There you go. I think you got the green light. I think you got yourself an access.
Holy that's crazy. Whoa. That was awesome. Much more realistic than I expected it to be. It really was like I was in the OR doing it. Poking that many times into the kidney wouldn't necessarily be safe, so you don't get this many opportunities to try to get a good access. Yeah, I would try this again. I need to try this again. It was great.
So the application that she's learning, which is making that puncture into the back, it actually lends itself really well to VR training and the haptic device, because you're looking at a X-ray view, which is 2D, but you're trying to learn spatially how to make the puncture into the patient's back and run a trajectory down to the kidney. So it's kind of a perfect fit. So going back to what Colin was talking about, this is surgical rehearsal. Wouldn't it be great if the surgeon who's going to perform your surgery tomorrow got a perfect score by practicing it the night before? I think the answer is yes. So yeah, here's how it works. You get the CT scan. We turn that into a simulation inside of our platform, and then you can practice and hopefully improve. One of the I guess dreams or goals of this technology is that because you're capturing all this data and these best practices and from different cases and having these experts use the device, that you'd end up with a catalog of, how to perform the best way to perform that surgery. And I like the example of conjoined twins. There's only a certain amount of people that know how to do that surgery. So wouldn't it be great if that was captured, in a practice environment, but at least you have that data. And so future surgeons would be able to look at that and maybe get some clues as to the best way to perform that surgery. So we have, so we're in the market. Cook, Boston Scientific, Coloplast are using it. We've done training at various hospitals, which has been used for doing tests. We have research papers. The Cook's interesting the way they're using it. So in Greece, they do a 3-day class. Day 1, they have new surgeons that have never done this particular technique, the PCNL access in this capacity. So day 1, they use our device. Day 2, they use anesthetized pigs, and day 3, they do live surgeries. So we got to witness that. It was pretty interesting to see our device in the wild. Boston's using it in the UK right now for various training workshops that they do. So we have done a bunch of testing at St. Mike's, at UPMC, at various hospitals, and the device is able to actually discern between expert and non-expert users, which is an important metric when you're building a simulator to kind of validate it. It is a patented technology, and here's someone at UHN, Dr. Lee, that used it for a few of his courses. And then we got some funding in Spain to work with a hospital to build a robotic surgery platform. Colin talked a bit about that. We're not using haptics for that, a haptic device. We're just using the controllers because we're trying to make a very inexpensive device. It's available on Steam, and it's also available on the MetaQuest store. So this was one of our devices, which was a rolling cart. We also have that version that travels in a Pelican case. But we're really excited to work with Colin to bring to work with his new device and to bring it down to something you can fit in a backpack. Because certainly portability and being able to take this, even to maybe practice on a flight on your way to a surgery is something that's it's certainly our customers have asked us for. And that's one of the classes in Germany. That's our other version where the device actually you can do prone and you can do supine position of the patient. But again, with the envelope of Colin's device, we're excited about the ability to make that a much easier changeover. And then something fun we did, because surgeons, or the feedback we got from residents, is the last thing they want when they go home from being in the OR and training all day is to go back in the OR. So we made a fun version where you're operating on aliens, which is also on Steam. So it's using the same techniques. You're still using that, you're learning that hand-eye coordination, but we've made some fun puzzles and games. And we're hoping to, inspire the next generation of would-be surgeons by having them, kind of play the games and get hooked on becoming a surgeon. And we got a Epic Mega Grant. And I think that's, we also are building a course on Udemy where you can actually learn how to do robotic surgery, and it goes hand in hand with our simulator that you can purchase on the Meta Store, and then we'll give you a certificate which will go on your LinkedIn profile. So that's what we're doing currently. And I think that's about it for me. You can reach out Ben at marionsurgical.com, and I think I'll cut it short there so we can open it up to questions.
Amazing, Ben. Thank you. And Colin, for kind of express overview of your solution. For our friends online, just referencing that we do have the ability to field questions. So I'll point you down to the Q&A function near the bottom of your screen. Keep your questions coming and we'll do our best to profile. In the meantime, as we wait for kind of the audience participation portion, you've definitely sparked a lot for me. So maybe I'll open what's top of mind for me, and then I'll welcome you to jump in as well. Colin, first off, congrats for that distinction at Consumer Electronics Show. I fortunately had the good fortune of being at CES this year. And I think, to break through the noise, because this is truly a massive, right, show that features such a diverse cross-section of technology is a huge accomplishment. Also kind of pacing the floor, what I observed and curious to hear your feedback on is, while there was definitely a small cluster, I will say, of health tech applications specifically, the gaming, the VRAR, immersive tech, consumer electronic kind of crossovers, or just crossovers that you can sense could inform a future health innovation really stuck out to me. So my question is, around your tech journey, right? I think both of you had referenced Ben, you referenced Epic, you're putting things on Steam, very mainstream gaming platform. I'd love to hear a little more about that dance between, what is traditionally medical R&D and maybe inspiration, right, from fields beyond the traditional healthcare industry. How has that informed your solutions, and how are you looking at potential innovations that are happening in parallel and outside industries as a source for inspiration? Wondering if either both of you could comment on that.
Sure, I can give my 2 cents. So, basically, I'm going to use this analogy, and I know it doesn't particularly apply, and like maybe it's a little contentious, but recently I got back from a show, which was a U.S. Army kind of show, and they were talking about robotics in defense applications and in the Arctic and things like that. One of the interesting things that they discussed was the concept that, like, back in like the 1960s, don't quote me on these stats, but they're approximately correct. But the idea that it was like 60% of all the R&D for the defense sector came from public sources, and now it's something like less than 5%. Okay, and the concept is that they actually draw a lot more in from the private sector into advancing the kind of technologies that they use inside of even like defense applications. And I think the same thing holds true for a lot of medical applications, because there's so much investment into gaming and AI in gaming, and AI, or like user interface design, user experience design, a lot of those things that then end up kind of making their way into a lot more, I would say, they can be tested in a context that is less, I would say, like less certification intensive, less regulatory intensive. And then when the value has been proven, then it's much easier kind of to sidestep and then know that the value is there, and then be able to invest the dollars and the funding dollars that go into like getting FDA approval or Health Canada approval or these type of things. And so I think it's a great, I think you see a lot of companies do that, because for us, for example, we can prove out a lot of the value proposition of 3D interaction in domains adjacent. But for example, we just won the Partenaire. There's a grant in Quebec. We're based in Montreal, called Partenaire EA, and it's about leveraging our technology in medical, in basically soft robots that will be used in ENT medical procedures and things like this. But we were able to do that because we could validate a lot of our use cases in other domains first, in industrial automation and et cetera. So to kind of answer your question is, I think it's just a lot of it boils down to regulatory requirements.
I guess to throw my 2 cents, you mentioned the gaming and the crossover. So when we have been taking part of the last few years of the AUA, the American Urology Association conference, which is like the Super Bowl for urologists. About 10,000 or so folks head there. So we've had our simulator in our booth, and the lineup from people from ages, I would say 45 and below, is since like they just love it, love gaming technology. A lot of the surgeons are gamers. If you're over 45 or 55, not so interested in learning new tricks. it's sort of the cutting edge for the for that generation. And I think with a device like Collins at that price point, it makes sense. I'm working with some surgeons in India, and when you bring the price down, it becomes something that, hey, I want a leg up. I want to be more competitive than the other surgeons, so I'm going to get something like this, practice at home, and become better and than my colleagues. So, anyways, I don't know if that answers your question on that, but definitely that sort of younger generation really kind of gravitate towards this kind of technology.
Absolutely. I think two elements you've highlighted, which were eye-opening for me, Colin, really just speaking like structurally to how organically the opportunity to do R&D to incubate solutions is shifting so rapidly. That's exciting. And then I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but like a pathway to training future talent, right? By reframing how even surgical training happens. I think that's just remarkable and inspiring. So thank you for both of those perspectives. I'm starting to see some questions trickle in now, so I'm just going to highlight a couple. There are a lot, so we're going to do our best. I see a question around, I'm going to paraphrase here, right? A lot of just, plus ones of the approach you're taking. Here's one around whether you are bringing, and I'll go to both of you for this, dimensions that were complementary to touch, auditory, olfactory, temperature, right? So what is that kind of next degree of, of full experience that you might be looking into?
I think so I'll comment on that just from a UX perspective. So user experience design, you go from like a little bit of math here. Okay. So you go from a computer mouse, and this is working in 2D. And so the math required for that is usually when you're looking at like the matrix math and these type of things it's quite small. It's like a 2x2 matrix that you're working with. Now, when you start incorporating something just in 3D, now all of a sudden you're working, and when I say 3D, it's like translations and rotations. You're starting to get into a 36, a matrix that's 36 elements large, so 6x6. And then you start throwing in force into that, and you start throwing in vibrations, and so the UX design, even for the concept of just like spatial manipulation, it's the Wild West, right? And so we're really looking right now as to say, okay, like even the spatial and touch interactions in 3D is its own brand new domain. Like one of my favorite videos of all time was the concept of it's called like the demo to end all demos or something like that, and it was like the release of the 2D computer mouse at Stanford, and you can find it online back in like the I think it was like 1950s or 60s. And it's this awesome thing where they're like going through it and they're describing, oh, you can use it for this way and you can use it for this way, and then you think that that's in the 60s, and then it took 30 years building these interactions, these like UX interactions where you go over an icon, you click it and it changes color, or you do these things. So all of that is was designed and iterated upon to get to these points. And like nowadays we use things like our touchscreens on our phones and these type of things. Like using a scroll to pinch is not a natural interaction, but it's one that works, right? And so we have to figure out a lot of those type of things about what is even possible in the domain of like spatial interaction. So I'm not really looking at a huge amount at olfactory phenomenon. I know you can look back and like there's some really fun videos if you want to look into like smell-o-vision and things like this that occurred back in like the early days of film, where they tried using some of these things where perfumes and things like this were being used to solve murder mysteries, and these were being deployed. And so I know other ones have been looked into, but that's its own can of UX UI problem solving that I know nothing about. Yeah.
I think you set it up well. I love it's kind of like the whole kind of compute analogy in AI, right? There's things kind of that are systemic to what our capabilities are today. Ben,
on the audio side, yeah, I'll add to. So we had a simulator that was doing so once you make the puncture and you make a hole into the patient, and then you put another tool in to grab kidney stones. So we have a simulator where you actually go in and grab the stones and pull them out. But we use like a scissor grip, which there's no haptics on the scissor grip. It's just a normal scissor grip. but we added audio where you feel the crunch of the stone when you go down and grab the stone. And we were getting feedback like, wow, you really can feel the squeeze. Like it really tricked the user that there was haptics, because they were getting some kind of reaction when they made that sort of that when they grabbed that stone. So I think audio is I think with film, it's like 80% of the movie is audio versus you can watch a bad video with good audio, but you can't watch a bad audio with like a good video with bad audio. You just reject. So I think audio is super important when creating these immersive environments. So, but yeah, so I think that there's a lot of trickery, and audio is a tool in the toolkit to create a realistic simulation where you especially with VR, where you suspend the user's disbelief that they're actually inside of some kind of VR space and not in the living room in the dark with a ski mask on.
Here's my appeal to research friends who may be on this call, well above my pay grade, but I would imagine that there's some interesting research opportunities to actually understand the so-called trickery, Ben, as you referenced, right? Like what are the triggering kind of mirror neuron or other neuroplasticity kind of observations or clinical insights we're generating that might help inform solutions, right? Because there may be interesting ways to, I don't want to say replicate, but at least create a more fulsome experience, even beyond the amazing kind of leaps that your two technologies are bringing. So I put that out there as a design challenge for us to maybe collaborate on down the road. I will also encourage our panelists, because some of these questions are getting deep and beyond my ability to even digest. So feel free to read, and Octave, this goes for you too, in comments. I will pluck one because it seems like we do have some emerging talent online. So let me highlight one that is, what advice would you give a final year biomedical engineering student that's interested in pursuing R&D in the medical device industry? Words of wisdom for our upcoming Marion and Happily workers of the future.
Well, the cool thing about I'll begin this one, that the cool thing about something like what we are developing is there's mechanical engineering, like designing the devices like Colin's working on, and also like all the different end effectors, et cetera, that go onto the piece. So simulating the surgical tools. So that's mechanical engineering. There's gaming, because you're using a video game engine for the world, like the real time gaming aspect. There's computer science. There's a application with using AI, using machine learning. There's biomedical, so you're learning. So we kind of were in that sort of cross that hub of all these different disciplines. So there's something for everyone, really, when you're building something like this. 3D modeling, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
And if I were to give my background is an engineering background. So I'll give you a little bit about my experience. Is basically, I think that in today's day and age, having a portfolio is insanely important. So portfolio projects you're working on outside of just school or anything like that, just you have GitHub, you have ways that people can see what you've been working on. You can take, you go into an interview, and my favorite resumes are always, especially kind of in line with what Ben said, is this like multidisciplinary stuff. It's like people who are exploring different things and are working on things outside of just like what your classroom assignments are. You can be truly interested if you show some of what your passion is outside of school, for example. And so I'll often look at that type of stuff far above what I'll look at like a GPA or something like that when we're doing hiring. I also think that in line with what Ben said is breadth first versus depth first. I find is really valuable, and that maybe that might be a little bit of it's a little bit of an AI term, but it's a concept of there's so much multidisciplinary stuff at that forefront that it's super ripe for a lot of research kind of innovation, because when you can synthesize a few of these different topics, and then you can actually create, when you synthesize, it allows you to go deeper. And so I always love seeing when people have like these a little bit of multifaceted kind of background too, where it's like, yeah, okay, you dabbled in the computer science side of things, but maybe you bought a $200 3D printer and are playing around with what that looks like to build IKEA furniture at home. I don't know, but these are all these type of things. Don't think of it as being like something that is not interesting or not applicable, even if you're doing it for fun. Yeah.
Fantastic. Colin, you mentioned the fact that the device that you create are software and platform agnostic.
Mhm.
And I think the question that I'll be asking here really stems from the mandate of our organization, the VRAR organization, which is XR focused, but we are increasingly moving into also AI.
Mhm.
When you are providing a tool, and this also to you, Ben, when you're providing a tool that allows you to really embrace that human aspect of human interaction. Are you looking at AI as a complementary tool above and beyond your device to improve precision? So obviously, humans have a great level of precision, but when we're talking about surgery and you have to be absolutely precise, are you taking a look at complementary AI, the intersection of AI to help improve that precision, particularly in the surgical field, or let's say you also mentioned the use case of nuclear waste
Mhm.
or industrial uses?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So the concept of being able to, so one of the things I find one of the things I find compelling about some of the work that we're doing is our type of device doesn't because it's so there's conflicting objectives when you're designing a device like ours, in the sense like when you're moving through free space, you want it to feel like free space, but when I come into contact with something, I want to feel that stiff contact, rigid, and really to relay information. I don't want it to go unstable, knock your coffee cup off your table, these type of things, right? Because that's like once that happens for the first time, this human machine trust layer will dissolve, right? And so to answer your question, there's AI and stuff that we will use even in terms of the diagnostics about if the device is performing appropriate, if it's starting to certain transmissions are starting to become loose, this type of stuff. So that's a certain one layer where we have deployed certain things like just device diagnostics, device testing, troubleshooting. Now there's other layers to that where you could start getting into this thing where we're leveraging basically imitation learning. They're called like large behavioral models, diffusion policies, leveraging expert users to be able to define the data sets that then the robots can learn from. And this is where you are still confined the robot. Like it makes a big difference about whether you have an expert user or a non-expert user doing that. For example, and it also, like for us, touch is insanely important for precision when you were talking about that. So we have results where we basically build simulations and we have users take our device and perform a task that is pretty much like going through a maze and doing a few things like this. And when you have an expert user doing it, after around as few as 150 to 200 iterations, you have the AI agent can learn how to do the task, okay? And it can repeat that task upwards of like 98% effectively. When we run the same test, the same simulation, and we remove the sense of touch, for example, same user, same task, same device, when we remove that sense of touch for precision, it drops all the way down to around 18% success rate. And so you already start to see this idea of like, okay, when I'm doing this type of precision interaction, how important being able to generate these real-time surfaces and provide that additional feedback is. And then you couple that with UX designs about being like, okay, we have one of our clients that uses our device for manipulating individual sperm cells, right? And so when you get down to that scale, it's not even possible. So what does that even mean from that level of precision? And so you see a lot of this stuff evolving, and it's really taking shape right now. And we have massive companies that are really getting involved in this domain. And then the last layer, which I will say is interesting, and we don't really dive into this hugely, but this concept of if you ever want to outperform people, it's like going to be these reinforcement learning policies and things like this, right? Where you're doing things in simulation and you're repeating a billion times the same procedure, but you have to really define and shape the rewards and the policies that they're able to move through. So all of this stuff is at the forefront of what's happening like literally today. Some of the biggest institutions in the world are investing big dollars into this. And we're going to see all of this kind of, I think the next 1 to 2 years is going to be really, like, let's say 1 to 5 years, is going to be really interesting to see what direction some of these start to take to basically unfold in front of us. But all of these areas are going to be heavily affected by AI for the performance perspective, but also the aiding humans and robots working together, but then eventually the full autonomy of these like robots learning from how we're doing our own interactions. So I don't know if that answered your question, but the answer is yes.
We did some research on like toolpath and sort of like expert users all having a defined toolpath, and then non-expert users having a different toolpath. And the experts were all kind of in a one like finer swath, and then the non-experts were all over the place. But I think with the machine learning, it's like if you can get if you do enough tests that you can get a CT scan and then or make a 3D model of the patient, and the computer will tell you the best toolpath based on learning over time all these different sort of having a collection of expert users to train it. So I think that's pretty interesting. And then another, just as an aside, we were getting some weird results with the kidney stone because there was a lot of forces and torque with the expert users, almost to the point of damaging the kidney. But then we realized that for some stones that are hard to find, the experts had more confidence that they could push the kidney around to get to those stones, as opposed to the non-expert who thought, oh, I don't want to torque this kidney too much, so I'm going to do another puncture, which is actually more damaging. So there's just a lot of that kind of tribal knowledge that I think if we can have lots of users run the simulation, that can train the robots, and then the robot can tell you, this is the best tool path at this trajectory. These are the forces to use. And maybe even with Colin's device, actually guide you with a hand and do it for you, so you can kind of learn, the sweet spot of performing that surgery.
And I'll just chime in on that. I really agree with that. It's like the way that I envision the immediate use of AI in a lot of these applications, and what's going to hit FDA approval like kind of the soonest, is these supervised kind of let's call it like kind of shared collaboration between the robot and the user, where you're going to have these macros that might be laid out in front of the user, and then the robot will ask the user, oh, is this macro acceptable? I'm going to suture this. Is this acceptable? And then you might kind of can go, okay, yeah, do it. And then you're going to watch it and make sure it's being done correctly. But then you can step in and take control at any point. So you need that kind of really to facilitate that type of smooth transitioning and trade-off between the AI and the human user. And that's going to allow us to be a superhuman. Yeah.
Our time together is ticking down. So Colin, Ben, I do encourage you to scan the Q&A panel, because there's some hyper-specific technical questions I'll invite you to, if you'd like to, comment on. While you do that, I'm going to open another kind of range of conversations. So I know there's some earlier stage healthcare managers, right, on this call, and they might be curious to hear a little more about your startup journey. So, we don't have to get into the details of your respective cap tables or anything, but I know you both have international presence. You've incubated technology or aspects of it in Canada. I'll invite you to kind of highlight what you felt has worked or you benefited from, or any advice you'd like to give earlier stage startups in terms of how they could ramp up both early R&D or kind of go-to-market strategies, just based on the experience that both your kind of later stage companies, not that you're both in field, might be able to offer.
I can comment on that just from more of a very heavily kind of deep. I think Canada is uniquely positioned globally in the sense that we have the best program internationally. Like it's when I talk to colleagues that work in Europe or work in the US or in Asia, they'll be like, they don't even believe some of the programs that we have available for us. And what I'm specifically speaking about are things like SHRED, so scientific research and economic development programs. And these allow you to basically explore technology that has large, uncertainties with it. And you can explore those and have technical people work on those problems, and you can get up to 75% of their salaries reimbursed. I think it depends if you're in Quebec or Ontario, but it's anywhere between like 60 and 75%. But that concept is crazy, where I can take, if I have 10 engineers that are working on a deep tech application, it might cost the company after being reimbursed somewhere around $250, $300 to $400,000 rather than the full $1 million for 10 engineers being paid $100,000 a year. That's just easy math. So this is where I would say heavily, like be aggressive in taking advantage of those things, because those are opportunities that allow us to be competitive globally in ways in those deep tech fields that nobody else has those advantages. And then when it comes time to scaling up or time to raising Series A capital, we have good funding opportunities available in Canada for kind of seed and pre-seed capital. And then beyond that, I say it's very, very natural to go to the US and things like this and then start writing larger checks. But that early stage is really, we are global leaders in that space. So be proud of it and take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I would say that incubators are a pretty good place to kind of get your feet wet. I was in we started off in the St. Mike's has a incubator, which was great because we were kind of really, you had a desk and you were really side by side with all these other companies. So you kind of get into that culture. So incubators, and then the regional innovation centers, the RICs, which are all over Canada. And in Ontario, there's a ton of them. Communitech, Mars, those are great. Venture, those are places where you can, again, learn about all these different programs like SHRED. How do you find a SHRED consultant, accounting, how to do all those different things. And then also some of them run hackathons. And I think hackathons are a great way to find a co-founder or somebody else with similar, values to what you want to, and can I stand to work with this person 12 hours, because you're kind of in a confined space working on something. Is this going to work out in the long term? Because it's kind of like a, like speed dating, I guess, for co-founders.
I could just jump in here as well to just echo what Colin and Ben have said, and to address the audience in terms of scaling and to assist them. The point that Colin made, say we're in a very unique position and we're the best in the world, specifically from an XR standpoint, from an XR simulation standpoint, there are unlikely sources for funding to help you accelerate your product. For example, the Canada Media Fund, even though you might see that it's media focused, is also putting funding into digital simulations and products for commercialization too. So if your product is a proof of concept and you're looking at, for example, getting additional funding, there's funding to actually get you to proof of concept from a virtual standpoint as well too. One other thing I want to mention, you can reach out to me later after this call. I'm involved in an accelerator program that's going to be focused specifically on XR, and that'll be launching in July of this year. And if your organization is interested, as that evolves, I can send you additional information on that as well too. So this is specifically for companies who may have gone through an incubator program and are looking to accelerate.
And I would be remiss if I didn't highlight some of the resources available through KITE, and specifically KITE Creates. So I referenced it off the top, and our goal is to really build these bridges, right, between the healthcare research and also startup communities and creative industries. So we do that through events like this, right? Just building community, creating forums and platforms for folks from these different spaces to come together. I think these two speakers, case in point, right? Drawing inspiration from different sectors, drawing collaborators and talent from different sectors. So please keep coming out to these. You can find information on our events at kite-creates.ca. You will also have my contact for information at the end of this. And we've just launched our version of a cohort-based incubator program, if you will. It's called Creator Circle. So we'll be announcing shortly, even though we've gone, we're in field already with our first cohort. We'll be kind of celebrating our initial wave and opening 2 more rounds. So this is an opportunity for folks that are earlier, definitely kind of pre-seed and maybe still refining a prototype, to gain support from an organization like ours that can help kind of connect you with either lived experience patient groups, or gain more direct access to the kind of clinical insights that might shape your solution, and of course be exposed to amazing industry mentors and advisors, the likes of which you've met today. So that's our Creator Circle program. So more than happy to answer questions about that as well. We're getting near end of time, so I'm wondering if I don't know if Colin, Ben, you've seen anything in the Q&As that spark curiosity, or if there's final points either of you would like to make. We're kind of in that zone.
I've seen some interesting questions from Priam and Peter and a few of these others that are directly addressed. So if it makes sense, in the document you had, that I think it's going out with this, my contact information is there as well, and I would be happy to hop on a call or answer any emails. So feel free to reach out to me directly there.
Great offer, Ben. Any kind of final thoughts or highlights?
It'd be great to get this the Q&A as a. I'm trying to distill all this great stuff here. So is it possible to get a copy of this?
Yeah, we'll have those logged, and hey, Desert Dream, we may have a follow-up session to address some of the kind of curiosity streams that have been opened up from this conversation. Akshay, any final thoughts from you in the VRAR world?
No, this has been really informative. I think we hit the nail on the head with our speakers here in terms of the impact that they're making in reimagining healthcare and patient care. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
Yes, and on our side, thank you so much, and we hope to see you again. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your day to join us.
And if you notice there in the chat, I did put the contact information for all of us there. Feel free to reach out to Colin or Ben, and also to Garrick and myself.
So with that, I'll invite our tech hosts to close the webinar, and we will see you all next round.